Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here. It is 5 o'clock on the nose, Eastern Daylight Time on Thursday, June 16th. Welcome to another exciting episode of UnWoke Academy. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. I'm going to dive right into investment philosophy. So, if you're working with any sort of mutual fund or stockbroker, financial advisor, insurance agent, anybody who is selling you financial product, you need to know a little bit about investment philosophy. Because if you don't ask questions, kind of like going into I'm going to draw a religious analogy, which is sure to upset the left. But just imagine walking into a house of worship and just saying, okay, good, I'm ready to worship, not knowing the denomination or religious beliefs. It could be a satanic cult, it could be a synagogue, it could be a church, it could be Catholic, it could be Protestant. You never know unless you ask. And knowing a little bit about the way that works and the structure of those sorts of things will pay off, hopefully financially, but certainly as far as getting your portfolio and your life and your wallet and your investments unwoke. So here's the way that it works. I'm going to use mutual funds as an example because mutual funds are sort of commonly understood. A lot of people have them, a lot of people know about what they are and how they work. You probably, if you have a 401k or IRA account, the chances are pretty good you probably have those in your savings, in your investments. So mutual funds, as I covered before in a previous episode, are always represented by a ticker symbol that is 5 letters long, 5 letters ending with the letter X, as in X-ray. That's how mutual funds are expressed. That's how they're kind of talked about in general in the financial world. So they have a ticker symbol, 5 letters ending in X. All mutual funds have a stated investment philosophy or investment objectives. So they can be sort of loose in general, like the philosophy, the objective of mutual fund fill in the blank is to track the S&P 500. That is an index that's used predominantly in the United States to reference certain companies within the United States or having origins in the United States. It could be as specific as the investment objectives of this fund are to purchase real estate assets that are only in the Asian Pacific. So reading a little bit about the investment objectives should pay off pretty big. But um, I guess I should say, and in addition to that, knowing the success and track record of that manager at doing a good job at adhering to that stated objective and doing a good job of managing the investments well over time, that's where people like me, the analytical types that analyze this stuff routinely and have been for decades, that's where we come in. But I want to arm you with the info to do at least some of the basic good stuff for yourself. So, in again, using mutual funds as an example, let's say that a mutual fund comes out, and I want to reference a term to know about the person who is making the decisions or team that makes the decisions about the mutual fund is often referred to as the investment manager or portfolio manager. So they're the people that go out and will look at companies that they might want to buy and put into the portfolio, which you own. So that mutual fund is a collection of lots of different investments. Using my earlier two examples, if you're looking at the S&P 500 and you're buying a mutual fund that seeks to try to closely replicate the S&P 500, you've got pretty much all that list. You should have that list of all those companies that trade on the are represented by the S&P 500. If you buy into that other mutual fund, the hypothetical example that I threw out there of investing only in Asia Pacific real estate, that really should be the only things that manager is buying. Now, you will find some people that it's called style drift, where they might kind of get a little bit hungry or might feel too constrained or trapped, and they might start buying outside of that, depending on the company that issues it. They may allow a little bit of that. But imagine this. Imagine you buy that mutual fund and the stated goal is whatever we do with all the money that comes in, we're not going to invest any of it in America. Well, if your objective is to avoid American investments, that's fine. But if your investment objective is to try to encourage growth in America, Europe, other countries, you should be a little particular about what is done or not done with your money. So you're not going to find a mutual fund that issues itself and says we're only going to invest in terrible companies that are poised to take over and aim to annihilate the United States capitalism and Western values. But what if I told you that some of the investments out there and some of the managers of these investments behave exactly that way? I happened upon, and this was the teaser to today's episode, I happened upon a Jack Posobiec. I don't know how to pronounce Posobiec. I hear people say Posobiec. If Jack hears this, I hope he does. I mean, no offense. I just don't know how to pronounce your last name. Posobiec. Jack Posobiec. I'm just going to say that. Jack Posobiec has a series of episodes on Spotify, and I think you'll find it other places. I catch bits and pieces here and there because my wife is a fan and she listens to his shows. And I happened into the room and overheard something on his episode 605. The title of the episode is Red Dragon, and it has to do with China and investments in China. So in this episode, he's talking about, and this isn't even recent, this was some years ago when he lived in China. He had some people come in and meet with and talk to him, and their whole shtick, their whole ideology was, we're not even considering investing any money in America or Europe. We want to look at China and certain cheap labor markets, other cheap labor markets. I'm sort of expounding upon what I interpreted from that conversation. You may want to listen to it. That again is Jack Posobiec, Red Dragon, episode 605. And I think the timestamp is around 14 minutes. It's about 14 minutes into that episode. Maybe go back to 13 and a half minutes and listen to the whole thing because it's pretty telling. But he talks about these people who were doing investment management and due diligence, traveling around the world, meeting with people and checking out companies. And and I've seen this before. I've seen it in a number of places. The investment managers, the portfolio managers, in pursuit of highest returns at all cost, and candidly operating under that belief system that America is done, that they have given up on America, and it's kind of that America last is what I call it. I picked that up, I think, from a recent former president. I won't name him because then people will get even more triggered about these episodes, and then send me even more hate mail. But so the America last mentality is a loss of belief in Judeo-Christian Western values, capitalism, and all the great things that have led to such great success for the people, we the people. And the people on the other side of the equation are buying in hook, line, and sinker to this idea of communism, where it's this elitist mentality of 1% control everything and all money and currency and finance. You see it in China. And you see it trying to invade in the United States, this idea of centralized banking digital currency, CBDC for short, attached to social credit systems, and this sort of massive, massive government structure that dictates everything. That is anti-Western values. It's anti-business. It is anti-capitalism. It completely is diametrically opposed to Judeo-Christian principles and values. And as we see in China, one of the biggest problems that they have is it leads to sort of a complacent lethargy on the part of the populace, and there's very little inventiveness. China is not, they've no real standing in the international stage in research and development. They are good, allegedly, at capturing and taking patent rights and then reproducing things for cheap using basically slave labor. So all of those things are things that I personally find reprehensible. I believe that there should be a lot of micro business organically grown in communities, and a lot of opportunity for upward expansion and growth and individual personal liberties and all those things that places like China fight against and seem to deplore. And I include in that current California Governor Gavin Newsom, who recently went and spent some time in China, has said on the record that he admires China and their government controls and dictatorships, and has come back and allegedly is working with the California branch of the Federal Reserve on creating things like a centralized banking digital currency that's attached to social credit, that manipulates and pressures people to behave in certain ways, that is counter to freedom, personal liberty, and individual responsibility and upward expansion. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But the managers out there, and that's where your money comes in. These managers out there that are running things like mutual funds, they have choices. And if we don't hold their feet to the fire and never really hold them accountable, and if we don't even ask what they plan to do with the money that we're giving them, then we just leave the ball completely in their court. And they can do all sorts of bad things. And they might be the type, like the people mentioned in Jack Posobiec's episode, who just sort of travel the world with their trillions of dollars and have this mindset that they've given up on America, and connected to that have given up on freedom and liberty. That's no good. That's where the rubber meets the road with UnWoke, and the whole everything that's been behind the 12 years that the great folks over at Second Vote spent building a database and measuring the corporate stance of companies measured against the 6 pillars of freedom, as I call them. That's it's a Judeo-Christian metric. Does the corporation stand up for liberty, religious freedom, Second Amendment, life, all those kinds of great values? Or are they the type of company that really seems to be thumbing its nose at America and the West right now? So if I have my way, and believe me, I'm really working on this, I'm pressuring the companies that I have contact with. I'm actually applying a lot of pressure, as much as I know how to exhibit, against these companies, telling them that they cannot and should not surreptitiously take trillions of dollars of American investment dollars, hard-earned corporate wages, or hard-earned personal wages, excuse me, and take those dollars and put them into far-left companies and causes, like those people who will travel over to China and say that they have no interest in investing in American companies. It's awful. It's horrendous. And I'm telling those companies, the ones that I have access to, um, and they're kind of across the board. If you can think of them, they work in finance. I have some level of connection with and to them, and they'll take phone calls from me. And I'm using that any amount of clout or leverage, if you will, that I have in the marketplace to tell them not just don't take the money and surreptitiously put it into things that harm us, we the people, but create alternatives that are either neutral, that just carve out the politics entirely, and just simply look at the value of the company. Um, and I would be surprised if a big percentage of that doesn't still focus on the United States, or it should, notwithstanding current administration that seems to oppose any possible growth and development and expansion, and even research and development patent protections in the United States. That's my opinion. Um, but there are also great opportunities out there for an estimated, I've heard numbers around 48 to 52 trillion dollars globally, represented by Judeo-Christian families. That money that's in those families, that's controlled by those people, if, well, two things. First, if those people wake up and act, then overnight we could really put this thing to bed. We could crush the leftist movement because we would cut the head off the snake. It would have no money. People are excited about people. They reference George Soros and people like him, and talk about the billions that he has to throw around. It's actually chump change compared to the global money that we, the people, internationally, globally control. Again, side note on that, when I use the term we, the people, I'm talking in a kind of a global perspective. I know that that term historically relates to the United States and the people of the United States, but I personally expand that to be the populace of all peace-loving, liberty-minded entities, countries, anywhere and everywhere. So we the people globally that are Judeo-Christian, that appreciate capitalism and are willing to recognize just the tremendous wealth and prosperity that capitalism has brought to average everyday people. It's unmatched by anything, certainly communism and certainly socialism. Um, so I'm talking to those companies and working hard to convince them that there is a niche out there to create the antithesis, create the opposite of ESG, create investment portfolios that appeal to those Judeo-Christian principles and the values. And I'm actually getting some at least neutral responses from some surprising ones, because I think once I start throwing some numbers around, and we've done the research, uh, there are at least, let's call it $50 trillion. $50 trillion globally, that's going to catch the attention of anybody. Right now, that $50 trillion is sort of, and more, is sort of, it's just up in the air, because the people who control how that money gets invested, the families, the trustees, the people who control the 401k plans and make the decisions, those people are just sort of playing hands off. They're not paying attention and listening to the comments and position statements of the portfolio managers. I want to ring the alarm bell, wake people up, and encourage all of those people in positions of responsibility over your family's money. It doesn't matter how much it is. I know I'm talking big figures. I know I'm talking about $50 trillion. I don't care if you have $500 invested somewhere. If it's in a mutual fund, change it from these woke managers, switch it over to something that's not woke. Remember, that's either shareholder first, meaning neutral, without the politics embedded in it, or consider, if you're like me, consider some Judeo-Christian alternatives. But by all means, just for heaven's sakes, get it out of the hands of the woke left. Take your however much money you have and get it out of their hands, and then tell everybody else to do the same thing. Get them onto these podcasts, get them onto these shows, talk to them about UnWoke. I know that it's not always common to have conversations around the family table at the family picnic and talk to your friends and family about finance. But it could just be as simple as following on social media. Click the like button, click the share button, get the word out. By the way, definitely that button down below on whichever platform you're on, click that, like, follow, share, get the notices, and get more people, because overnight, faster than you can imagine, if we get word out about the amount of money that we are giving to the people that are effectively our enemy, we can defund the woke. We defund the woke, and ladies and gentlemen, this war is effectively over, and we win. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of UnWoke.Academy. Stay tuned for the next exciting episode coming up.